Hello, hello, hello. Billy Carson here, aka Forbidden Knowledge. Let's check out the chat and see who's in the chat today. All right, God Force One, David, AB Yaya, Christopher Perkins, Nubia, Isaac Gonzalez, Tevin. What's happening? Sabir Hosen, Darlena Moore, DJ Quickgo. What's happening? Kiara, Jarek, M. Sully, Zach. All right, what's happening? Isaac, Iva, Scotty Pippen, what's happening? Kerry Arts, Anthony. All right. Listen, guys, thank you for coming on tonight. It's going to be a special kind of talk tonight, and I'm going to bring on a guest just shortly, Courtney Kane Size. She has her own amazing podcast on the Forbidden Knowledge Podcast Network. She's a psychic medium. She's given me some readings in the past that just blew my mind. She's really just incredible and so accurate. It's pretty weird how people can know things that I've never talked about. She knew things I never talked about before. She knows like personal things that nobody has ever heard before. So it's pretty interesting. She has a special gift. And she has her own podcast on Forbidden Knowledge TV. And of course, this YouTube account, which airs every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you tune in Wednesdays at 8. And sometimes she takes questions from the chat. She answers quite a bit of questions. So you want to, check out Courtney Kane Sides, her amazing podcast, like I said, every Wednesday. But tonight's going to be a special talk. We both have a similar experience that happened to us. We're going to both kind of elaborate on what happened. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because some of you may have heard me talk about this before. I very rarely talk about it, only if a person asks me about it. But encounters, in a situation that I had, I actually had a couple of encounters in my life, well documented. In other words, they've been talked about for years and years and years. The most recent one, though, was something that I kind of really haven't talked about that much, which happened right around 2010. It's been in a couple of interviews, only if somebody asked, but other than that, I've never really talked about it. Number one, there's no money to be made talking about UFOs and aliens. In a personal way, in other words, your personal experience. As a matter of fact, it was a catalyst for my divorce. So it was a major problem. It scared, out of my 5 kids that I was raising at the time, one of them, he's still horrified till this very day. It put some type of PTSD in him. And so he doesn't come around that much. He doesn't come to visit that much. It's hard to get him on the phone. It's hard to even get him to reply to a text message. And that was in 2010. It's now 2023. So these things are hard to talk about. They're hard to deal with. It has broken up families and broken up relationships. People who have had experiences that some may call either paranormal or of the second or third kind, direct interactions in the third dimension, things like that. People who have been abducted. I've never been abducted. People who have seen UFOs and things like that. It's hard for the masses to accept it, especially people on their inner circle. And so when they bring it up, right away, the Agent Smith effect kicks in, and the people you're talking to, they just shift into Agent Smith, and they want to shut you up. They want to call you crazy. They want to be afraid of you. They want to make other people afraid of you. They want to tell you you're a psycho and you would just imagine the whole thing. But the problem that we have with these sightings and with these experiences, it numbers in the hundreds of millions of people that have reported this type of activity happening personally to them. It's not like a couple hundred people a year. It's not like a couple thousand people a year. It's a couple million people per year having experiences that are unexplainable. And when they go to talk about it, they don't get met with the with the care and dignity that they deserve. Especially in minority communities. In minority communities, talking about UFOs, talking about aliens is like forbidden, literally like forbidden, right? And so if you talk about UFOs and aliens in those communities, for the longest time, up until recently, it's becoming slightly more accepted now. because of what the government's doing and other people like myself have been doing with disclosure all these years. But it's still a hard topic to bring up and talk about. People shun from it. They run away from it. I know some very, very famous people that I personally know that have been in my house that have had experiences that can't afford for their PR, can't afford to talk about it, in public, can't afford to go on a podcast and mention it, can't mention it anywhere outside of just an internal, private, super private, personal conversation because they're in fear for their reputation. And, and so this is what happens, in minority communities, it's like completely frowned upon. You're not supposed to have any experiences. You're not supposed to see UFOs and hear about UFOs. The word UFO shouldn't be in your vocabulary. And so it's a thing where, it's time to break that mold. It's time to come out of that shell. And it's time for us to begin to share our experiences as to what actually happened or what we believe happened to us so that people who have also had similar experiences can come out of their shells and start talking. And let's create a conversation. See, let's create a conversation around these things. Are all UFOs and sightings aliens from outer space and from other planets? I don't think so. I think it's a combination. I think we're seeing a combination of a few different things, which we'll talk about when I get Courtney on here very, very shortly. She'll be popping in. But I think it's a combination of a few different things happening. We know that the United States military has top secret projects. One in particular is the TR-3B Aurora project. The TR-3B is a triangular shaped craft with a circular magnetic disc underneath it, a rotating disc. That rotating disc uses a combination of a ferrofluid vortex engine, which is electrified and pressurized to 250,000 atmospheres and brought up to an RPM of 50,000. And by that method, they are able to achieve a form of anti-gravity, but the engine is also boosted and backed by a nuclear engine as well as thrusters. And it's all fly-by-wire, which means it's all connected to computers, very sophisticated servers, and satellite for them to be able to navigate through the sky. These vehicles are capable of incredible speeds, mind-boggling speeds, and mind-boggling maneuvers in the sky. And a lot of them have been mistaken as being UFOs from other planets or other countries. To tell you, these are ours. In other words, America has made these things. They come from outside of Cheyenne Mountain or wherever they open up the secret hatch and they pop out. Just like if you can remember the Gulf War, nobody knew about the stealth bombers and all that and all the different type of stealth technologies we had until the Gulf War, and then all of a sudden they were displayed in plain view. Well, those things had been out. Those things had been created decades prior. I remember the SR-71 Blackbird, which I had the privilege of touching and analyzing and looking inside of everything else. Top secret military jet, and that military jet was actually created in the 1960s. Yeah. So right now, the U.S. military and some private space technologies companies are actually about 300 years ahead of the general population. So a lot of the stuff you see in the sky ends up being stuff that's created by human beings, without a doubt. But there is this percentage of things that are up there, which the militaries of the world, I should say, countries of the world have acknowledged is not theirs and is unknown. They're now calling them UAPs. That's what they call them now. Instead of calling them a UFO, they've relabeled it to a UAP. And in doing this UAP renaming, they seem to want to authenticate the existence of these things without calling them UFOs, because UFOs is associated with crackpots and tinfoil hat wearing people. So they don't want to be associated with the tinfoil hat people. So they just renamed them UAP. Okay. Unexplained aerial phenomenon. That's what they're called now. Right. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to control the narrative, because these UFOs are real. There are UFOs that are up there doing 6,000 and 7,000 miles per hour with 90-degree turns that would crush a human being in their spinal cord, would completely condense and turn into the size of probably a grapefruit with one of those turns. But they're able to do it because they're inside of an anti-gravity bubble. So anything inside of that bubble when they're making these crazy maneuvers is unaffected by normal spatial gravity parameters. So, G forces. So they've acknowledged this in several documents, including the ATIP documents that have come out and been declassified, that these objects do exist, that they don't know who's flying them, that they're, according to them, they're not from this planet. They don't know any base or hidden area anywhere on this planet where these things actually come from, but they track them up into the sky and then out into outer space. So that's where the belief hence comes from, that they came from elsewhere, because they're always doing these crazy maneuvers. They send out fighters to try to track them down, right? And they can't keep up with them. And then they just poof, they go up into the upper atmosphere and they're gone. So we know for a fact that these UFOs really do exist and that they've been seen by fighter pilots. Even the head of the FAA a couple of decades ago made a very public statement to the fact that not only are they real, but they've been tracked on radar by the FAA. All right. The FAA just shut down the whole country yesterday. I wonder what that was all about. I was supposed to be on a plane to another country to take care of some business. And I was actually on the way to the airport when I got the word that no planes were taking off. They claimed that there was a problem with the FAA computer system. Yeah, they probably got hacked. Who knows? Some 10-year-old kid probably hacked them. Government is so easy to hack anyway. Their software and everything else they got is all out of date. They'd be hiring these programmers that, I don't know, these programmers must be 120 years old writing this code that they use. All these government sites and state sites are all garbage. But anyway, they were down. But the FAA, they have a database and they have all the trackings of all these unexplained objects. And in some cases, they have actually shut down actual airports because of these UFOs. And then you have the actual the testimony of actual former military guards that used to guard missile silos. They call them flights, nuclear flights. These flights are way out in the middle of nowhere where they had hidden silos. These silos have housed nuclear missiles, intercontinental ballistic nuclear missiles. And the guards who had worked at those silos and the people who worked inside the silos, in other words, the actual men that worked in the military that had the codes to program the nukes to bring them online or offline, they also testified. This was back in 2010 on national TV. It aired live in the middle of it was like 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And about 30 gentlemen came forward and talked about these UFOs coming out to their flights in broad daylight, that they had particular procedures, specific procedures in order to handle the situation, waiting for these things to leave, but that they would deactivate the nukes. They wouldn't activate them. They would deactivate the nukes. You got to understand, some of the hardest jobs to get in the world are the jobs where you actually are guarding or working on nuclear missiles. And so for these men who are now all retired, in their late age, they didn't care less not about the oath that they took for secrecy, because they're all about to pass away. Some actually have already died just from old age. They're like, man, whatever. We're going to tell these people. So they testified, and they brought forth their testimony as to what happened. And these were flights all over the world. And these flights where they have these nukes were getting shut down by UFOs that would show up in broad daylight. Pretty interesting stuff. So, like I said before, we have a combination of UFOs that are real, that may not originate from this planet, that people are seeing. And then we have a lot of sightings that are happening from things that do originate from this planet. I'm not an idiot. I'm going to, that's why they call me forbidden knowledge. I'm going to tell you like it is. What's interesting about my story, it happened so long ago, it makes me scratch my head and begs to ask the question, what was that? And where did it come from? So we're going to explore that today and a few other things. And I'm going to bring on Courtney Kane Sides very shortly here. And we're going to talk about that. Oh, she's popping in here now. And we're going to have a great discussion about UFOs and aliens and encounters. And let's just see where the conversation goes. All right. Let's bring on Courtney. Hey, Courtney.
Hi, my friend. Hi, Billy. How are you?
Fantastic. Good to see you.
Really good to see you too.
Yeah. It seems like I just saw you just a little while ago. I'll bring it back a little bit. Let me bring it back. so you can fit in there. Yeah,
There we are.
you can get
There
your
we
whole
are.
name in there now.
Yes.
Just saw you just a few weeks ago at the New Year's Eve party, which was great.
It was so, first of all, we had such a fabulous time. If anybody saw those beautiful pictures, I saw somebody today was commenting on a picture of Jimmy Church, and they were like saying something about the clouds or whatever. And I thought, no, I was literally sitting on the sofa when that your amazing photographer took that really cool image, and then we all were hopping on the bandwagon to
Yep.
take good pictures. Yes, but it was a beautiful party, beautiful
Thank you.
place.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a great time. So tonight we're talking about UFOs and alien encounters, from a personal side. But before we start, introduce yourself to the people. I know you have a podcast on our platform. You could tell them about your podcast, when it airs, and everything else.
Hi, my friends. First of all, I have to say, a little bit nervous tonight because I'm actually, instead of talking about, and I see you smiling as I say that, Billy, but I'm typically used to talking about everybody else. I even get red as I start to say that. And so it's what we're going to be talking about tonight is a very vulnerable, story that I really haven't told. And so I so appreciate your energy, your understanding, and all of that. And to have a beautiful podcast on the Forbidden Knowledge Network, I will tell you, it has been so wonderful, so fun to connect. And also many of the people that find me from your network, Billy, it is so cool when they book their private sessions. I can almost immediately know that they have come from the Forbidden Knowledge family. You viewers here, the energy of you all, when your awareness, call it from being an old soul or just your expansive knowledge on energy, whether that be extraterrestrial or your science-based mindset, there's something very specific about us all, you, and it is really cool. It's something that I can definitely tune into. So you've got a great community, Billy.
Thank you. Yeah, I call them, these people are so great. So every time I hit a benchmark in followers, I don't like to call them followers, I call them leaders.
Yeah,
because I really do believe that we're here to create leaders, not followers. The rest of the world, they're all followers, right?
Well, I love that. I might have to borrow that now, not steal it, but I might have to borrow that, and I'll give you credit. But that's exactly what I'm feeling when they tune in. There, we all have wisdom, and we all have an understanding when we hear it and we see it, which I think is why you've collectively brought many of the different shows on your network to the public. And my podcast airs on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. It's called Cosmically Connected, and we connect to our guides and angels, but we have also great discussions about, intuitiveness and connectivity to those guides and angels, to source, and also answer questions, which is lots of fun too. So those are Wednesdays.
Absolutely. It's going to be great. Make sure you tune in, guys. Courtney Kane Sides, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You don't want to miss it. So tonight, we're talking about the aliens and the UFOs.
We are.
So, yeah, I'll start off. And so you can get yourself kind of settled in and relax. I'll kind of talk about my story first.
Okay.
And my experience and what happened to me. And feel free to chime in anytime you want. So I was born in 1971 in Queens General Hospital in New York City, and lived in Cambria Heights, Queens. We came down to Florida right when I was 6, getting ready to turn 7, which is in September the 4th. And came down to Florida, left New York, came down to Florida, looking for a better life, which was kind of strange that we went from Cambria Heights to cocaine cowboy heaven. So it was a shocker. I remember having to get into fight the first couple of days in school because people didn't like the way I pronounced my words. I didn't know what they were saying because they had a special slang, and I wasn't ready for the slang yet. So coming from New York, it was more of a different type of proper talk, and it was a nightmare. But eventually, people got to know me and love me. But I remember, I didn't really get to go play that much because that neighborhood was so hardcore and so dangerous. We had a fence in front of the house. And so my parameters into how far I can go was from that side of the gate to that side of the gate. And that was it. Like, don't get caught pass here unless my mother would go with us. Other than that, you get in trouble.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time in the backyard, right? So luckily we did have a small backyard. And I would go in the backyard and I would had a little thing there where I would actually plant, onions and, scallions and different types of plants and flowers just to have fun. There was nothing else to do. We get seeds from Kmart back then. I don't think you can get them anymore, but you get seeds from Kmart for pennies and you just plant stuff in your yard.
Do they have Kmart anymore? Do they have Kmart? I don't know that they
see, we're aging ourselves now. There's no more Kmart. I don't think there's any more Kmarts. There might be here or there, but not too many.
Right.
Yeah, but I was in the backyard this one day. I just got done watering my garden, and I used to like to look up at the sky and watch the airplanes from the Opelika Airport go over. There's a private airport in Miami, Opelika, Hialeah area. Matter of fact, that airport was used in the movie with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. It was Bad Boys 2, I believe. They had a scene where they were driving through that airport through some of those airport hangars. Anyway, so I'm looking up in the sky and I would watch these airplanes, little airplanes. They would just go over. They made so much noise with props, and they would just go over really, really slow, really, really slow. And it always amazed me, like, man, I know these planes are moving fast to stay in the air, but from down here, it looks like they're moving so slow. And then one day I was looking up and this plane went, well, I thought it was a plane. They went, and I was like, wait a minute, what did I just see? I almost left the backyard, but I just kept looking up and it came back and then it stopped. And this time when it came back, it was much lower. Maybe now I can estimate about 200 meters above my head, completely silent. And it came to a complete stop and an abrupt stop. And then poof, it just went out the way it came in. And it was gone, just like that. And I ran around in circles in the backyard. I ran and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe what I just saw. And no answers anywhere. Now, this is 1977. There's no, 4 channels on TV, no influence on TV for UFOs and aliens, since it didn't exist. We had 4 channels. Those were, over the air channels too. It wasn't cable. Cable TV didn't exist yet. All right, no cable TV. And so I didn't have any outside influence. The word alien didn't exist in my vocabulary yet. The words UFO, flying saucer didn't exist yet for me. I just didn't know what I saw. It was more of an oval shape, not a complete cigar, and almost not an egg, maybe just a little bit bigger more oval than what an egg would be, but not quite. And it was glowing, this shiny type glowing metal look, completely silent, no exhaust pipes, no cockpit, no tail fin, no wings, no fuselage. And so I went to my elementary school the next morning, Rainbow Park Elementary. I lived 4 houses away from the elementary school. And I asked my teacher, I said, Mrs. Roll, can I please go to the library? She said, what do you need? I need to go get a couple of encyclopedias. My mom told me all the information's in the encyclopedia. So I said, okay, I need to get me an encyclopedia then. Somebody got to tell me something about what I saw. So I get the Encyclopedia Britannica, I get the one on aerospace, and I start going through the aerospace encyclopedia. And I'm really into this stuff. I'm looking at swept wing, delta wing. I'm looking at projects that have been declassified and ballistics and intercontinental ballistics and rockets and all the technology for launching satellites and all the Apollo. I'm looking at all this stuff. I still see nothing.
Right.
Nothing compared to what I saw in my backyard. But that is what sent me down a whole rabbit hole of discovery into, technology, aerospace, astrophysics. And that's how I started researching. I literally started researching the topics that I talk about today from 1977. Ironically, a week later, back then we had encyclopedia sales people that would come knock on your door and try to sell you a whole set. A week later, knock, 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 encyclopedia salesman comes to the house and approves my mom to give us a whole set of encyclopedias. He only took one payment. He never came back. The guy never came back. And listen, I had everything: biology, economics, physics, mathematics, history. I had everything: astrophysics, aerospace. I had everything. So I was just in heaven. And my dad would make me do book reports and all this stuff every single week and all those books. But to me, it was like, I loved it. So it wasn't a big deal. And so that was the first time I had an actual sighting in my life, and it was an amazing experience. It's something that I'll never forget.
Right.
And it changed me. It set me on the path that I'm on today.
Right. That first of all, your sighting was the year I was born, so 77. And so what I love is to hear is that your experience was from your childhood, which mine was the same. I had a couple of others as an adult, but to me, first of all, I saw somebody write Britannica earlier in the comments, which I thought that was really, I loved encyclopedias too.
Yeah.
I love that your quest for this was something that was not Googleable as well, right? And I know that when you start to talk about it, Billy, that same excitement and passion that you still have, even when you're sharing your work today, always, I almost see that childlike almost amazement, because I don't know about you, but for me, well, as the story I'm about to share with you, it was really traumatic, really. And for me, it was as a young, grade school child. But that quest for wanting more information or more knowledge about it is still very palpable. And so my experience, I was it was first, second, third grade. It was right around that time frame, and my father was traveling. He was out of town, and we were about to go to bed. We had been eating. I don't know if anybody else ate butter and crackers, but okay, right?
Yeah.
The greatest snack ever, right? I need to do that more often, probably.
Butter and matzo crackers. That was it.
Yeah, exactly. And so my mother, my twin sister, had gone to bed, and that the butter and crackers were on the nightstand. And there was, I have to take a breath as I say it, so please forgive me. I have literally never shared this. You and I haven't even talked about this. And I know there was a moment when I was telling Elisabeth about this, and she said, "Oh my gosh, Cortney, you and Billy have, some similar experiences from when you were younger." And so I really was excited to share this with you, and back and forth about yours as well. But that evening, sound asleep. I was laying on my father's side of the bed. My mother was on her side. My twin sister was in the middle. And the door into the bedroom was on my mom's side of the bed. And all of a sudden, I'm not sure how long I had been asleep, but I was jolted awake and frozen. Couldn't speak, could not move, couldn't move. And this energy, I called it, because I had no other frame of reference or knowledge. And forgive me, but I called it the little green Indian when I was a child. And my twin sister still, at moments, makes fun of me even about this experience. But I was jolted awake, and both my mother and my sister were still sound asleep. And this being glided, however you say it, from that door so ever slowly. With me frozen, and there was an outline of color, and to me it was a green color. It illuminated all around its being, and it stared at me the entire time it was going past my mother's side of the bed. And slowly coming around the foot. And as you can imagine, as a young kid, standing there terrified, or laying there terrified, not able to move, not able to speak. And it came around my side of the bed, and it went straight. I'm laying there again, frozen still, and it grabs the knife. So bizarre. Grabs the knife off of the nightstand, the butter knife, and stabs me right under my knee on my right side. And as I know, so dramatic, right? And I fell off the bed. I immediately, as soon as it touched my leg with that knife, I screamed. I was able to scream. Voice was coming out. Noise was coming out. I was crying. My leg was bleeding. And my mother jolted up awake, and so did my twin sister. And I start telling them frantically what happened. And they rushed me to the bathroom. My mom's, oh, you fell out of the bed. You fell out of the bed. And I was telling both of them, no, this is what happened. And my twin sister laughed, and, we were little and we're all just trying to make sense of it. But as I say that, I'm like almost like shaking. It was such a traumatizing experience that the people closest to me don't know that story. And at that point, my knowing of, there was just more energy, more of something out there. I knew it was almost extraterrestrial or intergalactic, but my little girl mindset didn't really understand the word alien. I had no idea. And it wasn't until years later, I was working for a neurofeedback company in Phoenix. And I had a couple of one other experience, and I'll share that in a minute. But there was a moment that I had found a man, and I'm sure you've heard of him. He was a psychiatrist, Jack E. Mack. You've heard of him, I'm sure, out of New York City. And he was a psychiatrist that hypnotized his patients. He was fascinated because all of his patients were having very much of the same common information, yet without knowing each other. And when I came across a recording. He had been deceased at the time I found him and the information, but I was playing a recorded session that he had with one of his patients. And I was frozen because their experience was very much mirrored in mine. And I've just always known that there was something else there. Have you heard of something like that, Billy? Have you heard other people having kind of contact in that way?
Well, I had a contact experience. That was the second one. I was going to let you elaborate on yours first. The second one, which I talked about, which has been come out in other interviews before, 3 or 4 other interviews in the past. One more recently, actually, on the Concrete podcast. So this was 2010. Now, it's what's interesting. All these things keep me on this path of whatever this is I'm doing.
Yes.
But I was working on this huge project at the time called Fort Terra Nova. Matter of fact, that is the Instagram account, Fort Terra Nova, ForTerranova, Fort Terra Nova on Instagram. That is a underground city that I built. It's a $20 million project that I built back then. It ended up being completed around 2013. It was getting so much attention, the project that I was working on. It ended up being, I got some interest from the History Channel, ended up being on TV. And even the fact that we were selling some of these underground shelters to other people. And so the show that I was on was called Countdown to Apocalypse. And it was the Nostradamus episode. So anyone who looks that up, I think it's still available streaming on History Channel. You can probably look it up. But so they caught wind of this project that I was doing, this underground city. It's the size of 3 Walmarts underground. And it can save the lives of 360 people in case of a regional, local, or global disaster. And so I began building this because of something that I was doing completely unrelated to aliens. I just started researching precession of the equinoxes, and I realized that we live in a cyclical civilization, and the rise and a fall based on geological disasters. And I said, wouldn't it be cool to have an underground shelter that can sustain for a year or 2 underground, completely off grid? Right. And so I began to look for a way to build my own shelter. And then a friend of mine who worked in the military on a top secret project under Oliver North directed me to a construction company that built the military's underground shelter. And when I called him up, he liked my plan, my idea that I had to do a group community shelter. And he flew into town the next day with his CFO, and we struck a deal, and we formed Fort Terra Nova. Wow. And built it as a paid community. So we would take psychological evaluations and applications and all this, and really evaluate the person's health and everything else. And if they pass a certain amount of tests or requirements psychologically, then they will be allowed to actually pay for a unit. And so it was successful. It sold out very rapidly. Matter of fact, there's a 7,000 person waiting list for Fort Terra Nova.
I want to be on the waiting list, by the way.
I'm going to build a new one. I'm building a new one because that one's already maxed out.
Okay, good.
So I'm building a brand new one. The food in that one I'm going to change out because back then, it has a year's supply of food there, but that year's supply of food, which I had no idea at the time, has gluten in it. So I've got to change all the food out, which I'm working on soon. But I'm going to build another one. So you'll be in on the brand new one. I'll make sure you have a spot.
I'm part of the family. I'm part of the family. Yes.
You're part of the family. You're definitely part of the family. Townhouse style living underground. So if you want to see what they look like, just go to Fort Terra Nova on Instagram. You'll find it. You'll see my History Channel clips, screenshots of me on the History Channel. But anyway, so I say all that to say this because I thought that was connected maybe with what happened to me. So I came back home from a day of working on this project, and it's about only 9 p.m. It's not even that late. I'm not exhausted. I'm not tired. And I just sit down to get my sports updates on ESPN in the family room area of the house. This house was a split floor plan house, pretty big, 6,000 square feet. And I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at this screen. There's nobody downstairs except the master bedroom is on the first floor in the corner behind 2 more walls. And everyone was home. At the time I was married, boys in one side of the house, girls on the other side of the house, everybody in their own room, as far as I knew, nobody in the loft. And so all of a sudden, the lights go dim and the lights turn into like a lavender color. Like a lavender color light comes on. The TV goes whoop and just shuts off. I thought my boys were playing some type of prank on me. So I looked over my left shoulder. Nobody at the up the staircase. There's a back staircase that leads up. There's 2 staircases, one back staircase, one front staircase. Leading up the back staircase, that back area, that's where they sleep. That's where they hang out and everything. Nothing. Nobody there. Nobody over the rail. Nobody laughing. Nobody peeping around the wall. Nothing. And I'm like, what the hell? So when I turned back around, 2 gray aliens were in my face. I call them gray aliens because that's the only thing I can call them. I don't know what they were.
Right.
But I'm sitting in a couch. So the couch I'm sitting in is probably a little bit lower than the chair, maybe an inch lower than the chair I'm sitting in. And, I'm kind of tall. I'm 6'4". And so they were at eye level. So they had to be somewhere in the 4.5 foot range or something like that. And what was so strange is their eyes. Hold on.
It's amazing, Billy, how it brings about the emotion.
Yeah, it brings it out.
It does. It's so life-changing.
Yeah. Sometimes I can talk about it easy. Sometimes I can't. So the eyes were not like, they were like almonds, but they didn't look like real eyes. They almost looked like coverings on top. So it looked like they were covered with something. I can't tell if it was a grid covering, like a speaker grill, or if it was actually the real eye.
Yes.
Yeah. It was so weird. And it was just so close. Now, what they did was they didn't they didn't communicate to me telepathically or nothing like that. But what they did was, wherever it was, my brain started shaking inside of my head. And it was painful. I started screaming. Nobody could hear me. I couldn't even hear me. The words were coming out. The sounds was coming, the wind was coming out, but no words were coming out. And it lasted, I don't know, 15, 20, maybe 30 seconds max. I can't really tell. That time was completely just a blank in terms of how much I was afraid. I was so frozen, I couldn't move.
Yeah.
And so just as quick as it started, it stopped. And then they turned around and they didn't walk away like a normal person walks. They just kind of dangled or floated away. It's a weird thing. They don't have a normal human walking gait. And they literally just walked right through the wall. Matter of fact, it was weird because the TV wall that I was using, it was this giant wall that was my TV wall system. It overlapped the way that they walked away. So when they walked away, one of them, the one on the right, actually caught a piece of that wall, and it just went right through it.
Through, right.
They went through the front area. The lights came back on. The TV came back on. And then that's when all my misery started. I went running around the house, and nobody heard anything. Nobody saw anything. Everybody got scared. My kids got scared. My son got horrified. My wife got crazy and horrified and scared. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back. We were already under a lot of pressure as it was. That was like the final catalyst for everything. And I stuck to my guns. Like, what I saw is what I saw. But by my excitement and my fear and everything else and everything I was, how I was explaining what was happening, it was just too much. And so I got nothing out of this but misery and sorrow, to be quite honest with you. But what you gonna say?
It is these experiences, Billy, and I know everybody else feels it and sees the energy. I mean, when I started to talk about it, it can feel crippling because it's so, doesn't it make it feels, you feel naked giving this almost, to me it was that experience that I had. I mean, it does change our energy vibrationally, and it is, nothing stays the same after, don't you think?
Yeah, it's just my oldest son, my middle son, not older, my middle son, he's the one who really, Giovanni, he doesn't call me, he doesn't text me. I text him, it takes him a week to respond, if he does even respond. He doesn't like to come to my house. When I asked him, why don't you ever want to stop by or participate in anything, he's just afraid. I'm afraid to come to your house because of what happened. He's still standoffish till this very day. He's 27 now, going to be 28 actually in February. So it's just like, it was the only thing I did get out of this that I could say, if there's anything positive, when they left, I heard this phrase in my head: worldwide telescope, over and over and over again, thousands of times. So I went to my computer and I sat down and I typed in worldwide telescope on excite.com, because back then Google was competing still with other, Alphabet, Excite, and all these other ones. That I typed in Excite. Excite was my favorite search engine. The first thing that popped up was worldwidetelescope.org, which is still open. That website is still live today. I literally almost passed out. I was like, what? It's real. So I tapped on the link. It took me to worldwidetelescope.org. And that website, at that time, you had to download the software. It was like Google Sky software back then. Right now, it's still the same, but even better than Google Sky, because it takes you to planets and moons and all the space probe data from actual real probes and real rovers that have gone to like Mars and other places is in that system. And it gives you the perspective from the camera of the probe. Wow. And it's an amazing site. And so I downloaded the software and I opened it up. I installed it, opened it up. And I said, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. So I just started playing around, and then I saw the different planets, and I saw Mars. I clicked on Mars. Then it says panoramas. I clicked on panoramas, and then it opened up Spirit rover, Opportunity rover, Voyager. I'm like, wow, these are the rovers that were sent out. I said, okay, I don't know. Let me click on Opportunity rover. Boom. I clicked on Opportunity. Then it gives you all the locations Opportunity rover's been. And when you click on a location, I clicked on McMurdo Valley. I zoomed in. It lets you zoom in, zoom out, pan left and right. It's the perspective from the actual mast cam on the rover itself. And what I saw was amazing. What I saw was a lot of what area looked like desert, barren desert, and rocks. But I also saw things that didn't look like rocks. And I was like, wait a minute, what is that? And I would zoom in. I was like, that doesn't look like a rock to me. And I would look and I would find more and more things, more anomalies. And I was like, what? So I started cataloging these things. And then I started running into other people online that were coming across similar anomalies. We all started finding these things around the same time. It's just amazing how whatever this force is that got us into this, and then we actually joined forces and created the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, which is a nonprofit that I have, that we seek out anomalies based on space probe data. And we've already downloaded over 1 million images from the official sources, Caltech and NASA, the international, the European Space Agency, the Russian Space Agency, China Space Agency, and now the Indian Space Agency. Analyze these images, and we've cataloged over 60,000 anomalies. So I don't know if that whole purpose of that thing was to get me into anomaly hunting or what, but some of those have actually made mainstream news. Like, what is this? What's going on here? How come, what are these things here? And so maybe that was the reason, but it also took me into ancient civilizations, because some of the objects that I saw in these images looked like remnants of ancient civilizations that you can discover the similar building techniques on Earth.
Yes. I
was like, what the hell is going on here?
It's
just wild. It's just wild.
So you had many moments throughout your lifetime of connection, and that is exactly what I noticed too, having that younger childhood experience. And I've got two moments where there was a moment, my oldest daughter is 25, and she was at home in Oklahoma. We lived in Phoenix at that point, myself and my ex-husband, and we're sound asleep, and all of a sudden you made that noise about the TV and the lights, and John and I were sound asleep, and we had that experience, and all the power, it did the same thing. We were asleep though, but you could hear it, what sounded like maybe Transformers or the grid go. It was like a woo woo, that weird sound. And it happened, and I intuitively knew he was wide awake. I immediately was wide awake, and I said, "What was that?" And both sat there for 2 seconds, and we both said, "Aliens." Now he was a complete skeptic. Now I've always been a little, intuitive, and I was already understanding my own gifts and abilities. And so he would think I was, off my rocker a little bit, but for him, he was a very pragmatic, analytical left brain. And he would have said he was an atheist, but he just was not a believer in anything. And for us to both be awake and have that moment, it was just bizarre. And after that is when my quest and my search happened, just like yours, Billy. And the way Google, the way it is today, the videos, YouTube, the information, it was not the way that it was even 15 years ago. And so I was on that same quest, and it wasn't probably 6 years, well, probably 5 years after that experience. Was in Phoenix. I was at 18th and Camelback grabbing Arby's. I'll never forget it. Not the most healthy Arby's for the family. Coming out to the bar, and my husband was like calling. I finally put everything down and was like, "What? I'm on my way home. I've got dinner." And I was probably being a little impatient. And he said, again, complete skeptic. He said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm at 18th and Camelback." I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm on 24th and Camelback." He said, "Do you see that?" And I said, "See what?" And he said, "Look up. Do you see that?" And I looked up in the sky. Mind you, he was never, ever a believer in any of this. Never had any experiences with anything than that previous thing by being woken up. And I looked up and I said, "What in the world?" And he was like, we were shocked. The triangle craft that you were speaking of earlier in the sky. And at that point, I was already doing radio shows. I was already working, in the career and work that I do now. And it was silent. There were no lights though, but this huge, massive, whatever you want to call that. You have the name for it. But that triangle craft, there were no lights, but it was blocking out the stars. It was blocking out all of that. And we went home, and that poor man, his life was changed. I think that's what we all ended up becoming pretty much preppers and all the things. But it was something that was quite startling. And after that, I think I was on Coast to Coast with George Norrie talking about that experience, other gifts and abilities, but and many other shows talking about that UFO experience. And even back then, they were saying that they thought it was governmental, more so governmental than necessarily UFO, but thinking that the technology derived from having possible connection with, other craft that had been here that was extraterrestrial. Is that right?
Yeah, well, they're called ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles. So what they've done is a lot of the crashes that have happened in the past, they have reverse engineered a lot of that tech and created these flying triangles.
Yeah.
So it still is alien in some way in that it's reverse engineered technology. A lot of fiber optics came from crashed UFOs. Velcro, believe it or not, that came from crashed UFOs.
Oh, wow.
A lot of tech came from crashed UFOs.
Billy, I have a question. Have you seen, there's a documentary that came out, I think right before the kind of COVID shutdown and all of that, but it's by Jeremy Corbell, which is, very big into UFOs and all of that stuff, but it was called Patient 17. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that one yet.
There, I watched it. There, I had a friend that that knew of my story of being a child and cut on the knee.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, again, I didn't tell. There was just a small handful, and that ex-husband of mine never knew that story.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just kept it so tight to the chest. And
Yeah.
when I saw that documentary, I watching the fear in that patient 17's eyes and where where this something happened on his just below his knee
Mm.
again kind of startled me. So do you feel like through, I'm curious, do you feel like through any of your experiences you've gotten either confirmation from somebody else's story about what you um, encountered, or
Yeah, well, there's been so many stories since I got into this space of talking about these things, and it took me a long time. I was in this space for a long time before I even told the story that I just told, because to be quite honest, I was afraid to be that transparent. It's hard to
me
be that
too,
transparent, you know?
me too.
Yeah, yeah, because it's emotional. It's hard to you pull that stuff up, and it's like, man, and then you know that millions of people are listening to it, and you're like, oh my God,
I
this is
know.
crazy.
I have
But
family members, even my older
yeah,
sisters. I know that they know about that story. I don't. I'm. You know, I always say
yeah,
that coming out as a psychic medium felt like coming out of the closet, and this does feel very raw. It is very. It is doesn't feel good
yeah,
to have those experiences and share them when you know that you'll essentially be, you know, seen as crazy and all of that. And I think it is becoming
mm,
so much more mainstream.
yeah,
But I want to just say I so appreciate you being
mm,
such a forward thinker in the sense because you've been sharing yours for quite a long time. I mean, it
yeah.
is January what 12th, 2023, and I'm just now really sharing this story,
Yeah.
and so I appreciate having you to bounce that off of with. So,
Well, listen, I appreciate you because it takes a lot of courage
mm,
to be transparent about those types of things,
yeah,
and so many people that I have come in contact with in this space before my story came out, I saw the courage that they had, and they were getting nothing. We got nothing. There's no money. There's no reward. There's no award coming. There's no, you're not going to get a great pat on the back or nothing like that. So a lot of the times it caused them a lot of family issues. The people that I had talked to, I'm talking about hundreds of people over the last 10 years that have had very similar experiences, and it gave them nothing but heartache. And so I came to the point where I realized just me hiding and keeping it, quiet all the time. Maybe I should say, talk about what happened to me to give other people a little bit of courage to come out with what happened to them so that we can have a discussion so that people can begin to talk and get this out because it eats you up on the inside. The more you keep it in, the more it just eats away at your soul. It's like, man, you got this information in you, and it's like you're afraid to speak it, and it's like it's eating a hole in you, and you want to get it out. But once you release it, even though it's kind of it's difficult,
you
at the
say
same time, it's like a
I start
yeah.
having heart palpitations as you even say it. I remember slowly, and you've met Ethan, my
Yes.
person. I hate to say boyfriend at the age of 45, but my person.
Yeah.
Um, I telling him, and even we talked about it a couple of nights ago, and he knew you and I were going to talk about it, and I was like, we talked about it, right? And he said, well, you've told me a little bit, so I told him just little bits and pieces. But
Yeah.
before I prefaced it, even with him, I was like, this isn't easy for me, so I
Yeah.
don't need, and he of course was beautifully, you know, holding space for me and
Yeah.
understood. I want to ask you something though. I'm curious through, so I believe that, you know, I connect to guides and angels, and even when I connect, I'm asking for nothing but the highest, the truest, or the best to manifest upon us.
Mhm.
And I do believe that some of those beings, extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call it. I'm not really big into semantics and words, you know,
Yeah.
and so I'm cool with somebody calling it whatever they want to. But I believe that we can connect to those energies. But I do feel as though I filter what I want to connect with, especially because of that child experience that I have. That's why I'm so specific on the kind
Mhm.
of energy or, you know, being that I want to connect with. I do feel like sometimes those multidimensional extraterrestrial beings are there to help us, some of them. But I think just like in, you know, human space, some are great to connect with, some can be more positive, and some can be more sinister. And so I'm curious, a two-part question. I'm curious if you agree, and I'm curious if you felt like after your experience, you had maybe more of an intuitive knowing, more of an inner awareness, or anything like that.
Yeah, that's two great questions, actually. I do believe that there are benevolent and malevolent beings out there in the third dimension, beings from other planets, and in the multi-dimension as well. So, because I believe that there's people living in every dimension in various different forms of energy. And I believe that no matter where you go, you're going to find yin and yang, good and evil. Thoth talks about it in the Emerald Tablets. I wrote about him in the book. He talks about incarnating in different planes and on different, which means different dimensions.
Yes.
And he's talking about the dark brothers, and these dark brothers, they seem to have the capability of incarnating or roaming or somehow inhabiting different dimensions and realms as well. And he talks about always looking to seek the light. So I do believe that there's this yin and there's yang. There's always going to be evil because there's good, and there's good because there's evil. And so this kind of balancing out of, so to speak, of forces. So yeah, you're right. There's beings that are, if you look in the ancient Sumerian tablets about the Anunnaki, some of these Anunnaki beings had developed a high level of compassion for human beings, and even married humans. Like Thoth married a human wife, Mayat. Enki, he married a human wife. He had a lot of empathy for humans. The Epic of Gilgamesh, in the Epic of Gilgamesh is a cuneiform tablet story about Noah's flood, the true full story that made it into the Bible. They copied it from the Epic of Gilgamesh. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Zuzidra is actually Noah. And Noah is what? The son of Ea Enki, one of these Anunnaki beings, which is why he wanted to save him, because he didn't want to see his own flesh drown in the flood. So you have this yin and this yang, which is pretty interesting.
I'm the Anunnaki, and I'm curious. Sorry, I apologize for interrupting. My twin sister and my parents used to make fun of, or not make fun of, but they used to refer to us as our childhood nicknames. And we called each other Anu as babies. As soon as we could speak, she and I have, and we still, in my phone, her name is Anu, and my name is Anu for her too. And so when I found out about, when I discovered the Anunnaki, my favorite quote is, the more we know nothing. And I feel like once we're there, we'll have true awareness. I can say how things feel to me, but do we ever really know things in concrete? This is the way it is. And so when I heard that Anunnaki, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And that's usually my code word. So anyway, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. No, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, listen, we're here to just have a conversation. It's not an interview,
Yes.
And it's just, it's just so much. I know the second part. What was the second part of your question again?
Your intuition or awareness.
Yes. Right. So besides the repetition of Worldwide Telescope coming in my mind, and I found that on worldwidetelescope.org, right? And that still exists today. Now you don't have to download the software. You can just actually use HTML5. So as soon as you go to their website, if you want to install, you can. If you don't want to install it, you can actually just use it right from the server now because of advancements in technology.
Wow.
But this other thing did happen to me. So I developed this heavy thirst for quantum physics in a way where I just understood it. I would read about something and I would just understand it from a level as if I even maybe was the person that came up with it, right? Heisenberg uncertainty principle and the double slit experiment was easy for me to conceive and wrap my mind around. Quantum entanglement using parabolic down conversion to phase shift two particles into the same frequency. And all these things were just so easy for me to understand. And so I just became a madman, devouring as many quantum mechanics and quantum physics books that I can get my hands on. I would actually buy college course books and then use those. And I started a group on Facebook for quantum physics, and it became the largest Facebook group. I would be in there teaching kids, helping kids do their homework from college.
Yeah.
And so, but that all started after that experience. But prior to that experience, I had a good aptitude but I really didn't dig deep into quantum physics and quantum mechanics. Then much later, I began to see the connection between quantum physics and quantum mechanics and spirituality. And I saw that the quantum mechanics and the physics were explaining what's going on behind the veil of the spirituality. And I was able to make the connection between the two, which took me to a totally different level.
I love quantum physics. It at the I can't even think of what I'm trying to say. The neurofeedback company that I worked for, I was able to meet so many amazing people, professors in the quantum physics world. And one of my favorite quotes is is what is observed is changed. And so to me, that when we're talking quantum physics, to me, there's such a beautiful grid of this world that we live in that to me, I feel like it's bonded and loved or in love. And I believe that even in the world of quantum physics, that energy of manifestation exists. And it's almost as though, I feel like you'll understand this when I say this, when I call on my guides and angels and I'm connecting, I feel as though I'm here in that grid of connection. And when I raise my energy, it's here. And the guides and angels, when I'm calling on them, they're lowering within that quantum field to find connection. So to me, call it spirit, call it science. You've heard me say that before. Yeah. I think the more that we kind of dive into quantum physics and the connection of it all, the more we do find ourselves quite amazed at this beautiful world around us. So
yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's just like, the voice of God is mathematics.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is the language of the entire universe. If we were going to communicate with an alien species, we wouldn't send them a letter in good old American English.
Yes.
We'd send them mathematics. We'd send them frequencies and symbols and sounds, which is all based on mathematics. We wouldn't send them, hey, hey, my name is Billy and I'm from Florida. It just doesn't. Yeah. But we know that if we send them specific mathematical equations and different type of geometrical shapes, is also based on mathematics, they can respond back again with mathematical codes and geometric shapes, which gives us an understanding of their level of understanding of the universe as a whole. And so we can actually have a complete conversation based solely on mathematical computations. And so, that's how you would communicate, because math is a universal language. And so, whereas the languages we have on this planet are just, they come and they go. But mathematics has been here since the very beginning of time and will be here forever. And so that is the communications level. So I just love it, and knowing that there is a medium that we can actually utilize to communicate with beings and people in other places. It gives me joy, because I know at some point, whether it's happened yet or not, at some point it will be made public. It will be made known to public exactly what's going on. I covered some of this in my documentary, Black Knight Satellite. It's an NSA document. You were at the red carpet event.
Which was amazing. Yes, and that's a beautiful documentary, by the way. Yes, and very well done with such thoughtful leaders, too. So beautifully ingrained in the work that they do. And to me, it is really, when I saw some of the, the other leading, I can't even remember his name. You were just with him not too long ago, and my little girl heart was like geeking out over it. I can't even remember what his name is, but when I saw that he was in your documentary too, I just thought, oh my gosh, Billy's really pulling together some amazing people, and for you to be able to do this through your energy, to me, that there's a reason why it is through you. So it's just like, if when I'm doing my work, some people will resonate with us and some won't, and that's also okay. But you being able to be pulling together such wisdom and putting it out there in that way, I think is just super impressive. And so thank you for that. Everybody should be going to make sure you watch Black Knight Satellite for sure. It was
Black Knight Satellite. You got to go to Forbidden Knowledge TV on your app store. Go to Forbidden Knowledge TV, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung TVs. Go to your Samsung TV app store and type in Forbidden Knowledge TV with the number 4, or go to the web with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.tv, and you can watch it on the web as well. And thank you for that. I think you were talking about Eric von Daniken, maybe.
Tell me the book. There's a major book that he wrote, and he's done many copies of the book.
Chariots of the Gods.
Yes, and I actually for my I'm putting up my future father-in-law for Christmas, and I need to actually get some of your books and have you sign them for me, and I'll give them.
Sure, that'd be great. Absolutely.
Yes, but yes, I was when he popped on. I thought, oh my gosh, Billy. I mean, this is. I had been following his work for so long too. It just I did eke out a little bit. So
yeah. No, he's a super great man. He's a pioneer. He's the great granddaddy of all of this stuff, dealing with asking the questions about ancient civilizations, but potentially having advanced technology, and where did it come from? The Chariots of the Gods. It has a question mark on the title. The whole book is questions all the way throughout. And he raises a lot of great questions that make you want to think, and he really, I think he sold 80 million copies of that book. It's in every language on every single continent.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, he sold a few more this Christmas. So, and because I never had actually read the book, but I followed so much of his work, seen so many of the different documentaries and things he was in. So I remember sitting there at the red carpet, all dressed up. It was a beautiful event. So great job. But even sitting there, and as soon as, the documentary, first of all, was top rate. It was wonderful. And then as soon as he popped up, I looked at Ethan, and Ethan didn't know who he was. And I was like, no, that's a big deal. I was like, this is a big deal. And so anyway, thank you.
Oh, no problem. This is great. And in that documentary, Jimmy Church had discovered an NSA document, which he brought to, which we talked about on the actual documentary. And that NSA document was titled Communication with ET.
Wow.
And they had communicated with some ETs out of the Epsilon Boötis constellation, utilizing a specific mathematical code that was laid out in this declassified document. So we talked about it in the documentary. It's pretty interesting stuff. So they, it's just so much going on, and in the fact that the government is, finally come forward and admitted to the fact that these UFOs exist. They won't use the word aliens, but they say we don't know who's piloting these craft. And
it's common thing right now. That's right. And every time they do, I kind of think, okay, well, it's the same thing. They wouldn't use the word even UFO. They're calling it something else now, and I don't even remember what the word is, or the phrase.
UAP.
Thank you. And so, it's just because they've been saying, oh, that's a hoax, or oh, they're crazy, or oh, that's worked for them for so long. It's just no longer working. Yeah.
Just a crazy situation. I know there was a Navy ship that just got buzzed by hundreds of these UAPs just a few months ago. And it buzzed this Navy ship, and it scared them. They were frightened. They were really scared. They didn't know what to do, where these things came from. They had no control over them. They surrounded the ship. They didn't know if they were getting ready to get blown out of the water or what, but they were just observing, and then they left.
Wow.
But these things are here, and they seem to be attracted to military ships, aircraft, bases, silos. Yeah, they love that stuff. I think they're sending us a message like, hey, anytime we're ready, we can stop you.
I that's always been the message that I have seen. Well, and I come back to my favorite quote: the more we know nothing. So we think we're in control. Take a breath, let it go. We think that we can understand. We think that these words we're using are enough to define or explain. I say often, even in my sessions, that I wish I just had a microphone to put next to my head so that you could just understand, because there's so much that's not verbal. And to try to put, I feel like you understand this too, Billy, to try to put the English language to that full mathematical equation of connection is almost nonsense. And so, they have that, call it telepathic or, immediate awareness, whatever you want to, that's the way they communicate. And I think that over time, that is the most efficient way to communicate. Now, I don't know that I want a chip in my head to be able to do that, but to be able to just have immediate awareness from one to the other, I think is pretty beautiful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, a lot of amazing things going on out here, and these sightings are real. There's too many multi-millions of people who have had experiences like we have seen things like we have seen, and experienced things on a physical matter. In other words, they've been touched in some way. And so when you have a few hundred or a few thousand over a few decades, it's like not a big deal, coincidence or just hallucinations. But these, when you have millions of people saying the same thing over and over and over again, coming up with the same descriptions over and over and over again for decades and decades, in some cases, really hundreds of years, you have to pay attention and realize that there is something really going on, that there's a phenomenon that's happening, that they are watching us,
Yes.
and that they're observing. And, it could be, like I said, right, the military is the biggest attraction. So other than just going on vacation to visit missile silos, which is, I could see happening, it could be monitoring to see what are we going to do, when are we going to destroy ourselves or not, or when are we going to break out of this mindset of war and get away from that, because right now, if you look at Earth, there's literally over 38,000 nuclear missiles on this planet, and they're all pointed at us, our own selves, while we're still on the planet with no escape rocket or nothing. So imagine you're an advanced race of beings flying by, you detect, oh wow, wait a minute, they've learned how to split the atom down there. Let's go check these people out right quick. They got technology. Let's see what they have a defense system on this planet. Oh wow, look how many weapons they have. Are they expecting an invasion from space? Or they look a little closer, they dig in a little bit deeper, they start downloading our databases and our information, tapping into our frequency on our radio and TV. And then they go, oh no, these bombs are aimed at their own selves. Oh man, this is a ghetto.
It is, right? And to me, some might think that we're talking about separate things when we're talking about, energetic, the where you're, what you're consuming, whether that be TV or, whatever. Even, I want to talk about all the things that Elisabeth talks about as far as the different healing modalities. To me, all of our healing is productive so that we can get into that stream and energy of love, so that we can get out of that energy of war.
Exactly.
And so some might not understand how my work and this, extraterrestrial UFO work and the history stuff that you've done for so long, or even the healing modalities that, say, Elisabeth's talking about so often in that biohacking podcast and all of that information. It's all linked, because all of it is necessary for us to evolve into that, conscious being.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's just a matter of, when are we going to grow up? When are we going to wake up? When are we going to bring back balance? Right now, the conscious balance on this planet is predominantly male energy, masculine energy, which is why you see the wars and the poverty and everything else. Why? Because it's a bachelor pad right now. It's a giant bachelor pad. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm a dude, but there's too much masculine energy. It's not balanced. It has to be put into a harmonious situation. And feminine energy has been heavily suppressed for over 2,000 years.
Yes.
You go back, you see that you couldn't walk into synagogues. Then you go a little forward in time, you couldn't even walk into a church. Then you finally get into a church. But God forbid you say something, they'll stone you to death.
Yes.
In the Bible, in the book of Deuteronomy, women will get killed if they look somewhere at a man.
Any of it. Yes.
Crazy. Yeah. Anything. It could be the smallest little thing. Women couldn't vote, whether you're white or black. You couldn't vote. And it's still today, even though it's slowly become better. There's still a lot of suppression of the feminine energy. And when you look into ancient civilizations and you look into the dynastic era of Egypt, there was one woman that came to power, and her name was Hatshepsut. She has a famous temple there called the Temple of Hatshepsut. And she was actually a woman who reigned as a pharaoh, and how she fooled everyone when she told them that her father was one of the Anunnaki, one of the Natiru. And all of her images that she would put around, she would put up the face and the body of a man, even though she ruled as a woman.
Mm.
And she was able to do this for 20 years. But
Wow.
during her rule, she took Egypt to another level. She took them to another level with agriculture, with arts, with even you want to call them jobs. They had created so many revolutionary things during her 20-year reign that it really helped uplift the people and gave them things to do. And wars had subsided. The ones that she had to take advantage of, because they just had to protect themselves, she won those wars too. And she extended the territory. I mean, this woman was incredible, incredible ruler, Hatshepsut. And she ruled under the guise of a man, even though she was a woman. But look what the feminine energy brought to that region for that 20-year period of time.
Creation.
Yeah.
Creating.
Yeah.
I saw somebody, I kept thinking of womb, the womb, the womb. And then somebody put womb, the womb men. You know what I mean? I think that what happens with our, nurturing feminine energy is that when we're in our full feminine energy, which sometimes when we're in trauma, which that's a whole nother podcast, we trust that we can be in that space. I take a breath as I say it. And I hope that many of us can find our balance with partner where that, and I have that in my relationship. I know, Billy, you have that in your relationship. When I can be in my most feminine self and trust, my person, he can be in his masculine energy, which is so beautifully and necessary in my life too. And for both, that we can both, create and hold space for each other. And I do think that, this earth, like you said, it's a big frat house essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to invite that female to come through and take form and hold space, hold that womb energy for the world, right? Oh my gosh, what I think the extraterrestrial beings, that galactic connection would probably find that we'd be a much more peaceful civilization, loving.
Oh, for sure. We'd be definitely much more nurturing and loving. We have to bring back the balance, and the balance will come back. It's returning, although it appears to be returning slowly, only because from our perspective, we don't have long lifespans. We live a very short life. We live a blink of an eye, 75 to 85 years, and boom, 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 you're out of here. But on a geological time scale, it's moving. It's coming back very rapidly. And we are in a Tetra Yuga, headed back toward a new golden age. And everything is cyclical. So we're going to go through this cycle and we're going to head back up. I try to tell people humanity is like a baby trying to learn how to crawl and then walk and then run. Right now, we're in the crawling stage. But we're almost to the stage where we're going to pull up on the edge of a chair or a couch and actually stand up. And things are going to look so great and so amazing. Everyone's going to be so happy. We're going to think we made it. But what happens to a baby when it takes its first step?
Yeah, we fall down, don't we?
Fall down. Yeah. And we got to remember, when we fall after standing up, when we fall again, we got to realize the ones who are strong, who have the gnosis, it isn't the end of the world. This is a natural process of learning how not to fall, how to catch your balance. And so the baby will then go back. It'll cry, but it will get back to the edge of that chair, that couch, pull up again, take a couple of steps, and then fall again, and then get up again. Eventually, the baby takes 10, 15, 20 consecutive steps. Everybody gets really happy. But then what happens? The baby tries to start running. And then, about 2-3 months in, the baby is falling from running. So again, it will look like, oh my God, we were doing so good. What happened? Everything's falling apart. No, this is a part of the process. Calm down. This is what happens when we're a baby trying to learn how to catch its walking gait and its running gait. What is walking? Walking is a series of controlled falls. That's the definition of walking.
Yes.
And so when we get to the point where we can walk and we can control our fall consistently, that's when we'll be open to get more contact from some of these beings that have been sitting and watching. They're waiting for us to grow up.
And understanding that with each fall, first of all, I love the way that you just articulated that, Billy. The way I also understand that, and I say it, I swear, in almost every darn session that I have, is to quit condemning or judging or having guilt about our own falls. And it is life. It is that growing period. But if you have awareness, what we find is that we don't quite go as far down as we did before. So even through that fall, we're higher than we were back here. We're less of that infant. We're walking. We're no longer crawling. We're walking. We're 14 years old. We're 20 years old. I mean, there's a gaining. And typically, if we're learning, if we're truly healing in this life, connecting back to our full potential, our full connected self, we don't typically go all the way back down to the bottom. There's still that learning measure of movement.
A curve, yes, absolutely, yeah, for sure, no doubt, no doubt. I know we've been on here for a good minute now, but before we go, I gotta show a quick commercial before I let you tell everyone where they can find you.
Okay.
But let me run a quick commercial, guys. This is for the Manifest Destiny Workshop, which is coming up in just a couple of short weeks. I want to see you there at the Manifest Destiny Workshop. Hi, my name is Billy Carson, aka Forbidden Knowledge. You must be a part of my Manifest Destiny 2023 workshop. The last 4 years were absolutely amazing, and every year it got bigger and bigger as I impacted and touched more than 130,000 lives. With over 10,000 amazing testimonials over the last 4 years, this is something to grow on. This year is going to be the biggest and best year ever. All new science, all new quantum mechanics, all new metaphysics, all new manifesting techniques, in a fully interactive online workshop that's going to blow your mind and set you and your family up for the rest of 2023. We have amazing guest speakers. We have the worldwide Tim Storey. He's a life coach to the stars. He's an amazing teacher and a multi-times best-selling author on New York Times. We also have Elisabeth Hoekstra, another best-selling author, and her specialty is how to deal with the shadow work and the trauma, and how to clear your mind, and how to use modalities to clear your consciousness to help you get to higher levels. We also have Antonina coming on to teach trauma relief in a fully interactive trauma release class taught by a licensed person to help you release the trauma from your body. Trauma that's been impacted and stored in your body for a very long time. And I'm coming on to help teach all the manifesting techniques, the technology of the human body, how to access it, how to use it, how to fully utilize the laws of attraction to bend the matrix to your will and create the reality that you and your family deserve. Make sure you click the link ASAP in the caption of this video or in my bio and sign up on Eventbrite ASAP because space is limited. I want to see you there. Be ready for an explosive 2023. Peace. Okay. That's the Manifest Destiny Workshop coming up. The link is in the comments and also in the caption of this video. I got one question here for you, Cortney.
Yes.
Have you ever met a person that can show their natural powers? Interesting question from Trendsetters.
That is a really interesting question. Thank you for that. I believe so. Now, when you say natural powers, I think that we all have them. I believe that when I connect to clients, of course, even I would say friends, you, Billy, Elisabeth, I think that we can pick up on others' natural powers, if you will. And I'm a firm believer that we all have this gift and ability. I'm a firm believer that we all can have contact with our loved ones on the other side. We can all have contact with what we choose to, and we can all expand our mindset within those, again, natural powers. Billy, you've heard me say this as well. I believe that this work, the work that I do as far as coming back into that intuitive self, that connected understanding of the awareness around us, that is something we all have. I honestly believe that it should be taught in Sunday school, first grade through college. This is something that if the government is training their people to have this connection that I am concrete in, which I know that you all actually possess as well, it should be taught like science. Like if gym class is important, this is important. And so, yeah, the natural powers we all have. Yes.
Yeah. Great answer. And, I'm working toward the Forbidden Knowledge Homeschool. So that's a plan that we're working on for 2025 to launch the Forbidden Knowledge Homeschooling so that people can actually have their kids homeschooled on Forbidden Knowledge, a special section of Forbidden Knowledge TV that's accredited to give them their right credits for their, to pass on to the next grade. but to also give them the forbidden knowledge.
Yeah, to think outside of the box.
That's right. Exactly. Going to get some real creative minds cooking when we launch the Forbidden Knowledge Homeschool program. It's going to be an amazing project. So we have to come to an end today. Cortney, thank you so much for your transparency and your time and your courage to come out and talk about this topic tonight. I really appreciate it.
Billy, thank you. I so appreciate it too. And even those of you here and watching live, I appreciate you holding space. Just in the way, Billy, you showed emotion. This was not easy to do. A 45-year-old woman, and I've done radio shows for 1 million years. I've done this work for so long. And I so appreciate the way that you show up for the world and the way that you make a space to share, and you hold that empathic understanding, because of course you understand it. You've had the same happen and beyond. So thank you for that, Billy. And thank you everybody again for watching live and holding space for us tonight. It means a lot.
Thank you so much. So tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me, of course, first of all, Wednesday evenings here on the Forbidden Knowledge Network, which I love showing up for at 7 p.m. Central and 8 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday evening. And also, of course, on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, which is hilarious and fun, under Cortney Kane Sides Medium. And you see Cortney there with no U. So thank you, Billy. And thank you guys for showing up. There's always awesome, fun workshops and things that are shared all over every one of those different platforms. And so I appreciate your follow.
No problem. Thank you. And I'll make sure they get links to all your sites and your social media accounts in the caption of this video, on your website, in the caption of this video as well. Great show. Wow. Took a lot out of me. I got to go sit down and have a cup of coffee and an oatmeal cookie now.
Yeah.
That's my form of a cigarette. I don't smoke.
Me too.
Yeah. But thank you everyone for coming on tonight. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much to all the brand new subscribers that have come on in just a very short period of time. We just rushed right through 300,000. We're at about 315,000 or something right now, and climbing like crazy. So thank you so much to all the brand new subscribers. Make sure you like this video. Make sure that you share it, and make sure that you click the little bell so you get the notifications. And here's another question. What he was saying was move objects with their mind and understand how to do it. Oh, telekinesis.
That's cool.
I actually have met somebody, not with telekinesis, but with a different kind of power. This is a childhood friend of mine who actually can sense when somebody was coming. And so I tested him out. We went out to the sidewalk in front of the house that we were living in Miami, New Orleans area. And he actually had his back to the door. And I was doing a little game with him on the ground with rocks. And then my mother, I knew she was going to come call us because it was now dark and it's time for us to come in the house. Every time the sun goes down, it's time to call. And I just kept waiting and waiting for her to come out. I just kept his attention. And I could see the big picture window behind him as my mother starts walking towards the picture window to roll out the little roller window and scream out, "Hey." And before she got to the window, as she just was coming up to it, he said, "Somebody's coming." And my mother was at the window. I said, "Wow, this is crazy." Another day, I took him into the side room, which was a converted garage. And that's where I had my DJ equipment and everything else. And we were in there messing around. Now, from this room, it's completely enclosed and there's no windows. And he goes, "Somebody's coming." And I'm going, "Nobody's even in my house. Nobody's home. My dad's not home. Nobody's home." Sure enough, my dad had come home early and came through the front door and heard us making all that noise inside the little side room and opened the door and looked in. I said, "Wow, this kid has some kind of power." I asked him about it. He said, "I always had this ability to tell when somebody's walking towards me or somebody's coming." That's the only time I've experienced anything like that. Pretty interesting.
I have to share just quick that, first of all, I love that. I've not ever met somebody who was that quick with something like that. My old business partner, we used to work and travel and speak under the name of Sparrow Kane for so many years. And her daughter was a master at finding things. And so she could just take a breath, connect. And she was young. She was like 10, 11 at the time. And even now today, I'll have clients that will say, "Can you find this?" And I can do that. I can connect it. I don't know that that's my master powerhouse, but I can do it. I still kind of question it occasionally, but I always Oh man, I wish I had her little girl on speed dial. So anyway, we'll have different little heightened techniques that we can use.
Yeah. Everybody has a gift. Some of us just don't open the packages. We have to open our package. We have to discover what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
And with that being said, that was another great night on Forbidden Knowledge Podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, Billy.
And tell Evan I said hello. Ethan, I'm sorry. Ethan, I said hello. And I'll see him soon, hopefully. All
yes.
right?
I think well, I feel like it's April and for sure in July.
Okay.
Yes, we'll see you soon.
July at the Forbidden Conscious Awards, everyone. Don't forget.
That's right.
All right. See you later.
All right. Bye, my friend. Bye, guys.
Bye. All right, guys. That was Courtney Kane Size. Don't forget to follow her podcast Wednesday night. And we will have the Forbidden Conscious Awards coming very soon. I will give you a sneak peek at the venue here. Let me give you a sneak peek at the Forbidden Conscious Awards venue. This is it here, the Adrian Arch Center. It's going to be in beautiful Miami, Florida. If you want a place to go where you can come to a beautiful award ceremony where people from the conscious community get their flowers while they're still alive, you can come down to the Adrian Arch Center. I will get you the link to get tickets to this beautiful black tie, red carpet event. And you will also be getting the information on how you can vote for your favorite influencer very, very soon. There's all categories. We have podcasts, radio hosts, metaphysics, TV host, producer, content creator, anomaly hunters, you name it. All categories. There's 11 total categories, which I will have the next time I come on, all 11 categories. We're finalizing them right now. And one 12th category for a Lifetime Achievement Award, which will be given out. And I'll be giving the speech for the Lifetime Achievement Award. Also, I will be speaking at this event. So if you have never seen me speak in public, if you have never seen me speak live, you'll want to come to this event just for the word that I'm going to give that day. It's going to be an amazing open keynote speech, and you don't want to miss that. It's going to be amazing. And so the link I just dropped in the comment box to the Adrian Arch Center, if you want to get tickets, that's going to be July 30th, 2023. Don't miss it. Put that on your vacation list. Come to Miami. Come hang out with me and everyone else. And you will get a chance, if you have VIP tickets or if you are in a box, to hang out with us in the VIP pre-event mixer, where you can shake hands, take photos, autographs, everything else before the event starts. We have world famous Chris Spencer, the comedian Chris Spencer. He's a writer, comedian, director, actor. He's hosting the actual event. And we also have Jimmy Church co-hosting, giving out the names of the nominees and detailed information as to why they are nominees and who the winners also are as well. It's going to be a mind-blowing, engaging event with live performances from me, Forbidden Knowledge, Donnie Arcade, Cruz, Havoc from Mobb Deep, and we're working on a couple other names of people you may know. We have Dame Dash also locked, but there's a couple more big names we're trying to lock in as well. But it's going to be fun, exhilarating, exciting, red carpet. Don't miss this event. It's going to be amazing. I just dropped it in the comments. I'm going to drop it one more time. And with that being said, guys, I'm going to sign off for the night. Thanks for spending time with me tonight. Third Eye Love. Peace.